Hello, it's Danielle Fishel.
Ryder Strong.
And Will Friedle from Pod Meets World.
Does friendly have a taste? If it does, it's probably like Hello's peppermint-flavored anti-plaque and whitening toothpaste.
Brush away plaque, show tartar who's boss, and remove surface stains to naturally whiten.
Hello's thoughtful and flavor-forward products make brushing your teeth feel like a confetti-filled bathroom dance party.
So say hello to Hello with the always cruelty-free, never tested on animals toothpaste that's made to spread smiles.
Visit HelloProducts.com and let Hello add some everyday yay into your life.
This is VOCM Open Line. Call 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626. The views and opinions of this program are not necessarily those of this station. The biggest conversation in Newfoundland and Labrador starts now. Here's VOCM Open Line host Paddy Daly.
Well, all right, and good morning to you. Thank you so much for tuning into the program. It's Thursday, September the 25th. This is Open Line. I'm your host, Paddy Daly, David Williams. He's produced the program. You'll be speaking with David when you pick up the phone to give us a shout to get in the queue to get on the air. If you're in the St. John's metro region, the number to dial is 709-273-5211. Elsewhere, toll-free long distance, 1-888-590-VOCM, which is 8626. So, how about those Blue Jays? Ew. 5-game lead evaporated in a hurry. Now tied at the top of the American League East with the New York Yankees. How can a team that looked so good for so long look so bad so quickly? Boy, oh boy. Anyway, baseball is just a little distraction for me, but go Jays. All right, so they're playing the Red Sox, of course. Get a load of this stat. 1989 Boston Red Sox Wade Boggs. Wish we had a Wade Boggs. First player ever to achieve 200 hits and 100 walks in 4 consecutive seasons. Yeah. And this is a really brilliant stat. And this is a story of the longevity of two sporting legends and the offspring. So on August 29th of 2001, Serena Williams won the U.S. Open, Albert Pujols hit a home run, and Vladimir Guerrero Sr., Craig Biggio, and Dante Bichette all recorded a hit. Fast forward to August 29th of 2022. Serena Williams wins the U.S. Open, Albert Pujols hits a home run, and Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Kevin Biggio, and Bo Bichette all record a hit. Strange stat. Loves me a stat. All right. So have you seen the video going around that depicts the CN Tower on fire? It's been seen tens of millions of times. And, of course, it's a deep fake. It's not real. This is becoming a massive problem. Like, regardless of how old you are or your interaction with the internet or social media, AI-generated content is absolutely everywhere. And we've got to wrap our minds around it. So for social media platforms, it really is incumbent on them to ensure that when artificial intelligence generates something, that it's tagged exactly like that. You have to say, this is content generated by artificial intelligence. So people don't get bamboozled. Because you know the deal. You see something, you read something, you hear something. Regardless of whether or not it's true, unless you take the next steps to verify it, it becomes reality. And that's a big problem. So for artificial intelligence, yes, it can increase efficiency. Yes, it can increase productivity. Can indeed be utilized to problem solve. Accuracy, reduced errors. That's only if there's good information going into the algorithm. Better experiences, safety improvements like working in hazardous conditions. But there's also concern about displacing jobs. There's absolutely massive concerns with bias and ethical concerns, privacy risks. And of course, it's unemotional, so lacks any human quality. Huge cost to implement it, whether it be the consumption of power and just the overall building of these data centers and the servers required. And then it's where we're headed, is the over-reliance on artificial intelligence. So we've seen some of the reports come from MIT's Media Lab about critical thinking and the possible negative consequences for human interaction regarding AI. It's real. So there might be some of you glazed over now thinking, I don't really care about that. I care about how much my groceries are. I get it. But that influence of AI is going to be a huge difference maker. Social media we thought was going to be innocent and innocuous and fun, and look where that's turned out. And now add AI into it, and off we go. All right, so apparently there was a threat at St. Peter's School here in town yesterday. Heard from some parents of students at that school, and predictably, they're pretty shook up. You know, even the threat itself specifically has not been publicly reported, but when you have to displace an entire student body because of a threat levied at a school, Of course they're shook up. So people will ask questions about how it's handled and the communication with the parents. I don't think they were complaining necessarily about the level of communication. It's just whether or not there was enough understanding, enough intel to say that one student or another may pose a problem into the future, insofar as a risk or bringing weapons to school or whatever the case may be. But terrible stuff. All right, let's get into the campaign and public safety. Of course, even just reacting to the Department of Justice survey about whether or not people feel safe or less safe, and people, generally speaking, feel less safe in their communities. So the parties are all talking public safety, and rightfully so. Then there's the pledges of simple hiring of more police officers. We heard Tony Wakeham talk about hiring an additional 46 to be divvied up between the RNC and the RCMP, talking about reopening the RCMP detachment in Grand Bank. Okay. Then John Hogan yesterday talking about it, and they both have the same slogan on their placard, Safer Communities. Mr. Hogan is saying that a re-elected Liberal government will hire 90 new RNC officers by 2030 and renegotiate contracts to add 30 additional RCMP officers, so of course the end result, more frequent patrols. Talking about upping the subsidy for training, subsidized up to $20,000 per. That's up from $15,000, which was just announced in June. All of this makes sense, right? The trick is not only how quickly can more officers be recruited and put into place wherever they're most needed, but whether or not we're going to be able to satisfy those numbers. Just think about the RCMP vacancies for starters in this province. It was a huge problem. Active campaigns nationally by the RCMP to fill vacancies right across the country and came up woefully short. They were even talking about changing the mandate of the RCMP to simply deal with more national security measures as opposed to police presence in community, doing regular police work. So, I mean, I think it all sounds great, but in reality, how do we get there? It's very much akin to the conversation about all of the new employees working in the healthcare sector in various disciplines. Everything sounds good, but the reality of how you actually achieve it and the details associated with it are a little bit hard to come by. Then you talk about hiring more Crown prosecutors. Absolutely. You know, there's been concerns about Jordan rulings because you have 18 months from you're arrested to be heard in provincial court, 30 months to be heard in Supreme Court. That's had implication already here in this province. It's already changed how the police do their investigations and when charges are eventually laid and evidence is sworn. So yes, public safety, and we can talk about it because we all know police presence goes a long way to A, slowing you down on the highway, and B, keeping the criminals at bay if they know the police are around. Okay, but not a whole lot of talk about some of the root causes that leads to the amount of crime, serious and otherwise, that we see right around the province, right around the country, because the numbers are up. And an email overnight saying, you know, you're afraid to talk about the gun buyback program. We spoke about it extensively yesterday. But anyway, you want to talk about anything in that world, we can do it. There's the concept of catch and release, as people say. And then we're not talking about Atlantic salmon, we're talking about criminals. And so bail reform, much of which is fully the authority of the federal government. So we can talk about it here. And of course, it's a national conversation. How it looks realistically into the future, I guess we'll have to have a real debate on how, where, why bail reform is required, what kind of crimes we see too lenient bail parameters put forward by judges in the country. But you want to talk about it? Let's go. All right, I see a story about food banks, and of course, the reliance of people in this country regarding food banks is off the charts. Some 25% of people in the country can't afford the food that they need. Amazing stuff. This is a very specific story coming from Main Street in Lewisport. So they opened up the food bank in Lewisport some 3 decades ago. And like most food banks in the country, they were only intended to be a temporary solution. But all these decades later, they're still there. And more Canadians are relying on food banks. Clients or patrons that food banks have never seen before. People who are working full time and still having a hard time making ends meet regarding food. This particular food bank in Lewisport, they're talking about just operating the essential service entirely funded by donations. No money coming from the provincial government. As much as the food banks should not be as prevalent as they are in this country, you can't expect these people, by and large, most of the folks that you'll see at a food bank, working at a food bank, are volunteering. So the government knows that food insecurity is a real thing. So whether it be we have some insight into giving seed money to hydroponics and peppering the entire landscape with them where they're most needed, because access to food is not only about money, it's also about geographical access. So Government support for these outlets needs to come in the form of money. We all know the food banks can stretch a dollar much further than me and you can as normal Joes and Janes going to the grocery store. But to the folks in Lewisport, if you want to bring your story to the show here this morning, we're absolutely happy to have it. Okay. So I'm not sure what to make of these numbers, but let's dig into it. New information come from Statistics Canada in the second quarter population data. So they refer to it as Canada being Newfoundland and Labrador becoming the first province in Canada to cross what they're calling a golden age threshold. 1 in 4 people in this province are aged 65 years of age or older. First time in history. As of July the 1st, 25.2% of the people in this province have celebrated their 65th, but the average in Canada is 19.5%. The median age of the population in this province is 47.8 years old, oldest in the country. None of it the youngest, median age of 27.1. Okay, so there are the numbers. The trick now is, how do we digest the numbers? How do we react to the numbers? What's required here? Because you can't turn back the hands of time. We are where we are. The death rate has outpaced the birth rate for years here in this province. And some of that is cost of living related matters. Some of that is people focusing in on their careers more than having families. And to each their own. You do as you see fit. You do what works for you. But what do we do with these numbers? People will talk about healthcare, obviously. I guess just an unfortunate, and I hope to be a senior citizen someday, but we know that as you age, it's more likely that some ailments come your way, from minor to major, and then we look at things like with age comes the possibility, and the stats bear this out, about things like dementia, Alzheimer's. So the numbers have been out there for quite a long time. There is some strategies here in the country and here in the province how to understand the numbers and what to do to prepare for the numbers. In 2020, there was approximately 600,000 Canadians living with dementia. The forecasted number is now 1.7 million by 2050. That's a 187% increase. And that's according to the Alzheimer's Society of Canada's landmark study back in 2020. Well, guess when it was released. So how do we prepare? Do we hear our leaders talking about the required preparation, understanding the aging demographic of this province? And it's not only about the age issue, it's also about where people are and access to the care and the services that they need. What are we doing? We're talking an awful lot about the concept of aging in place, staying home longer in life. Many people would prefer to stay at home. But what are we doing? As opposed to simply a conversation about it, there has been apparently some national conversation about federal supports for aging in place, but we're nowhere near where we need to be. I mean, how many times on this program have we heard stories of people scrambling and begging for more home care hours, and at the exact same time having politicians, and I will use this phrase, have the gall to talk about aging in place? If that's a thing, and they're meaningful about it, let's act on it. So that requires financial supports. I mean, we even have this the division between self-managed home care and agency home care. Let's just get on with it. You know, there's a cost-benefit analysis, both mentally, financially, emotionally, societally, that really looks like there's a massive upside to being able to stay at home longer in life. If you put a price tag, and we hate to talk about human beings associated only with a price tag, but if you talk about the cost to be in a long-term care facility versus the cost for someone to stay at home, there's a win, financially speaking, for people to be able to stay at home. So let's see if we can get some understanding from political leaders about what these numbers mean to them and what they think we should do to act on them. Obviously, it's not a bad thing to become a senior citizen. I hope to be one. But we have to understand the needs. And we have to implement public policy and the required spending to ensure that we're legitimately prepared. Because the trend isn't going to change. Unless something dramatic changes in culture and in society, where all of a sudden the big family is once again a thing, there's no reason to believe that to be the case. I'm one of 5 children. I only know one family at this moment in time, parents my age, that have 5 kids. One. I only know a handful of families that have more than 2 kids. That's just where we are. So how do we absorb those numbers? I really don't know, but we've got to talk about it, obviously. All right. And we can get into the Upper Churchill Memorandum of Understanding. It's a big deal. Most people I talk to, they don't know if it's fit to eat. They don't understand it. Not because I say so, because they say so. But then you talk about the potential. If this happens, and we've identified the concerns being voiced by many, many people, and we can continue to do so. But let's look down the road, because at this moment in time, if both Premiers Legault and Hogan are still in place after the election here, October the 14th, then we're moving towards definitive agreements. And then we hear, more money from the upper Churchill means more money for things like healthcare. Let's think about it. So let's talk about the rate mitigation plan that was put in place last May. So it was just in an effort to cap rate increases for Ireland customers at 2.25% per year until 2030. That's going to cost more than $3.5 billion. So, number one, we have no idea what's going to happen after 2030. So, again, for political leaders, we need to know if this becomes a reality, if this becomes an actual definitive agreement, a contract, a binding contract, how that money is utilized. And we do know somewhere in the neighborhood of 90% of the so-called $225 billion is after 2041. But that average billion a year for 17 years, because if signed by April next year, it's retroactive to January 1st this year. For that money to not be earmarked for power rate control is going to be a mistake. It is. I mean, it's already super expensive to heat our homes here using electricity. So let's hear from you. Is that a key focus area? Because if it's not on Muskrat-associated rates and debt and deficit, then we're just pandering to the public. These things need attention, and they need commitment from political leaders and their political parties. Your thoughts? So, yes, and anything inside the envelope of the upper Churchill, you know me, I'm into the conversation. Let's keep going. One thing that there's a lot of conversation about in this country is not only immigration, which has to be very targeted. Just look at the population numbers we just talked about. Targeted immigration is going to be a key for our future. It is. That doesn't mean fling open the doors and anybody who wants to come comes. No. I mean targeted, rational, prepared immigration targets need to be hit in this province. And then you talk about the temporary foreign worker program. For starters, businesses pay a fee to avail of the temporary foreign worker program. There is no financial support money coming from the federal government to subsidize wages for temporary foreign workers. And we've heard from Mr. Poilievre saying he would cancel it in full with exemptions for people working in agriculture. But let's look at it. How does it work? So for starters, unfortunately, some businesses have put forward fictional labour market impact assessments, which has caused great consternation. But the issue is pretty complicated if we really boil down to what's going on. There's a concern with the low wage stream. And what that we're being told is that the low wage stream and people availing of temporary foreign workers in the low wage stream keeps wages suppressed. Because if employers had to raise their pay to get locals to take the jobs, then of course they do go, I was going to say hand in glove, but they're very closely related. Then there's a power imbalance. Okay. So for starters, if you get an application approved for a temporary foreign worker, it's associated with just one job. And what happens there is that the employee, being a temporary foreign worker who is supposed to be protected by all the labour standards rules in this country, they may feel distinct pressure because if they run afoul of their employer and they lose that job, they're kicked out of the country. So what we need is open permits. That's just a better idea for anyone. Even if you think that temporary foreign workers are stealing your job, which in large part, that's an employer issue versus an employee issue. If there was an open permit, they'd be much better treated. And then it's what they refer to as a yo-yo. All right. For starters, back in 2014, there was new limits capping the number of low-wage workers a business could hire per site, restricting the program in areas of high unemployment, which has had an uptick in productivity and what have you. But how do we fix it? Because politicians are good at pointing out the problem, not very good at pointing out solutions. What do you do? One thing for starters is we could phase out some of the programs and a new fee structure. So, of course, businesses already have to pay a fee, but if the fee was varied and based on employment numbers locally and different occupations, you could have a different fee associated with different areas of unemployment and different employees and their experience and or their qualifications. So that's part of it. And it's a funny thing to say, but the government kind of needs to get a bit more involved here. So, for starters, there was a completely restrictive role in determining which business should be allowed to hire a TFW. Here's a quote coming from someone who's a labour relations quote-unquote expert. make businesses do a better job of justifying their use of the program and give the government a more active role in determining whose application is the strongest. And then, for the big national chains, we need them to apply for all the desired positions at once. So franchise owners at this moment in time, they do it on a standalone basis as opposed to the franchisee. That makes sense to me. And then the last one they talk about is how you level the playing field. And that's basically just the open permits thing. And, you talk about temporary foreign workers being utilized, and the youth unemployment numbers in this country are way up. They're at a serious all-time high. But just think about it. Some of the large centres with heavy populations, they may indeed see youth unemployment numbers go way through the roof. But then you talk about more rural, remote parts of the country, and without temporary foreign worker programs, you'd see communities get starved out. Because you can't hire someone who doesn't live where you are if you're talking about a small, rural, remote part of the country. So temporary foreign worker program gets a lot of focus, and understandably so. Let's see here. We're on Twitter. We're VOCM Open Line. You can follow us there. Email address is openline@vocm.com. When we come back, let's have a great show. That can only happen if you're in the queue to talk about whatever's on your mind. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's begin this morning on line number 1. Caller, you're on the air.
Hi, good morning, Patty.
Morning.
I'm looking for some advice, and I certainly hope you can give me some. I live downtown. In July 1st, sorry, honey, a trap house opened up next door. Since then, the neighborhood, the seniors, the working people, and the children here, we've been terrorized, non-stop terrorized, from screaming, yelling, to traffic. Listen, 60 to 100 people a day going there. Smashed out windows, smashed out doors. It's non-stop. When we've called the police, they say we don't have the resources. I'm so tired of hearing that. They don't have the resources. How do we get rid of this house? We had an incident there yesterday. A young woman screaming, smashing out windows outside, saying her brother was OD'd on the floor. I mean, it just never stops. My own child, who's special needs, is scared to death to be living in his own home. I've contacted the city. I've contacted the MHAs. I don't know where else to turn. How do we shut this place down?
Well, it's an excellent question. And it's just so people know, when people use the slang of trap house, it's just basically a house, whether it was purchased or rented or possibly an abandoned house where the drug dealer set up shop. And, it's not only dealing drugs out of there. Some of these trap houses, we've seen arrests made where they had the drug labs inside as well. So it's a bigger problem than people realize. Other than law enforcement, I don't know. But I will say this. For landlords, I mean, the landlords play a role here. If you're renting to the sketchiest of all people, and if you don't, when it's identified that that house become a trap house that you rented, you need to start the eviction process, number 1. Number 2, you cannot have RNC or anybody else say we don't have the resources, because it's not just about the drugs being sold. It's exactly what you said. Neighborhoods become terrorized.
Absolutely. Now, I know the neighbors and I have met. We were all on the street again yesterday. They have emailed, they have called the landlord numerous times. But he's getting $950 per room for 4 rooms. That's a lot of money for that house. His worker was here 2 days ago trying to fix up some of the broken glass and windows and doors inside there. Now they're broken again. His worker came out and said, I can't go in there anymore. It is so dirty and filthy that I'm afraid I'm going to catch something. I can't work in there. I said, you need to tell the landlord that. He's not listening to any of us. It is absolutely disgusting, Patty. The garbage. I can't even take my son on the back deck anymore. It is absolutely disgusting. I've taken pictures. I've sent them to the city. Garbage left out for weeks. Rats running around. I mean, I had a social worker. I watched him come next door with cases of booze, and they wouldn't open the door. And he said to me, are they home? I said, they're home. they've been up all night again. They're home, but they won't answer the door to them. I mean, someone who is ever putting these people there need to be responsible for going in, looking at the conditions, and seeing what's going on. If these people were getting help and trying to straighten out, sure, no problem. But if they're there just to have the drugs sold and the parties and the fighting and the crime, look, it's got to be shut down.
No disagreement coming from me. And again, I'll just go back to, for starters, we avoid talking about the fact that landlords play a role here, and they do. And I don't know why we don't include that in the conversation. But I hear the same general concern all the time is, if law enforcement, and I believe the police know a lot more than we think they know about who are the problems, who are the criminal element that are causing so much of the problems. They know where the drugs are being sold. They know where the prostitutes are operating. They know where the pimps are operating. But it's the question is, if they know, why don't they shut it down? Which is an excellent question. If you tell the police, whether it be providing evidence of photographs or, the community or the neighborhood comes together, they all tell the same story to the RNC, for me, that should sound like enough for them to take action. And I don't know why that isn't the case. I honestly don't.
Absolutely. Totally agree. Talking to neighbors yesterday, we have sent videos. There's been numerous calls, but the same thing over and over. RNC, we don't have the resources. The landlord, hey, they got to live somewhere. That's his outlook. I don't know. I mean, it's going to come. I don't know what it's going to come to, but heaven forbid it's going to come to something really bad.
It generally ends poorly. Yes, absolutely.
The city does have a role in this, too, because the city allows these slum landlords to operate these houses. Why are not the city going in and doing regular inspections? Why are the city allowing these boarding rooms or whatever you're calling them to operate like they're operating? So it's a big, look, I brought 171 signatures down to City Hall about this. They did nothing, okay? They did nothing. So why the city is not being taken to task for this, I have no idea. They play a major role. And to the social workers of these people, you can pay $9.50 a month per person in this house, but some senior or a child with a disability don't even get a quarter of the help that these criminals are getting. I don't understand it.
I don't either. It's hard to get answers about these types of things, specific trap houses or specific elements of crime, and why the RNC or the RCMP, whether or not they know about it or whether or not they're doing anything about it. But I guess the best thing we can do is keep highlighting the issue here on the show and throughout the media, and hopefully that type of pressure leads for the RNC in this case to do more.
Well, every person running for City Hall that knocked on my door, my first question is, what are you going to do about these houses? Oh, I don't know. We're going to try to get them help. How are you going to try to get them help when a social worker goes there with cases of booze to help these people and they won't let them in? How are you going to do it? It's look, they don't want help, a lot of them. If they did, my hat is off to them. But they don't. It's just a place to run drugs and other things. That's all it is. And for the RNC to say we don't have enough resources is ridiculous. They have them when they want them, and it doesn't take 2 or 3 years to investigate a house. All they got to do is sit up the road for one night and see how much traffic is going there, and they know what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, if there was a squad car on the corner, I think that would reduce traffic, period, because unless you're in the death spiral of addiction, you're not going to want to make a drug deal right in front of the cops. I think that's the case anyway.
You know what? When the police were here yesterday for the possibility of someone OD'd in there were 3 addicts sitting outside waiting for them to leave so they could go in. I mean, it's a sin to say, but all the police do is say, okay, and they go on. They don't do diddly squat for checking this out. Diddly squat. I mean, health minister should come in and have a look. Heaven forbid that place is so dirty, like they say, that I'll end up getting bugs in my house or something. It's the last thing I want.
Understood. I appreciate your concern and your time this morning. Thank you. Be well.
Thank you, Patty.
You're
Bye.
welcome. Bye-bye. I mean, and I guess that type of story is exactly why, and understandably so, political parties are talking about public safety, because it's a real issue. Now, far be it for me to tell you what the big issues are that you should be concerned about, because that's why we all have a different lot in life. So whether it be about drugs or crime in your neighborhood, whether it be about the generalities of cost of living pressures, which are very, very real, whether it be about healthcare, whether it be about the Upper Churchill or anything like that, that's why the show is programmed by you. You tell me what you want to talk about right after this. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Just before we get to the phone lines, hearing reports of a great first meeting in Burnt Point last night, talked about the recovery, the rebuild of the unincorporated communities out in CBN, of course, pummeled by the Kingston fire, Kingston and Western Bay, Ocrapick Cove and Northern Bay. So if you're in attendance as an organizer or otherwise, want to report back as to what you heard, what you think about what you heard last night at that meeting, we'd really appreciate it. Let's go to line number 3, take it more to the president of the, MNL, Municipalities, Newfoundland and Labrador. That's Amy Cody. Good morning, Amy. You're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. Thanks for having me on this morning. I appreciate it.
Happy to do it. So we're a week out from the close of municipal elections on the 2nd of October. Before we get into some election kind of stuff, what role does MNL play in some of these rebuild meetings and rebuild standards?
Well, we're always supportive of our member municipalities. A lot of the communities that were affected by the wildfires were local service districts and unincorporated areas who fall under the provincial government jurisdiction. So the provincial government will be hands-on with assisting. A lot of our member municipalities have regional agreements in place with LSDs and unincorporated areas for fire services, garbage collection, things like that. So it's important for us to maintain those relationships and have good partnerships to make sure that our regions are growing and that our communities are sustainable.
Yeah, and I know who you represent as your actual members, but of course, incorporated municipalities will be surrounding or in very close proximity to some of these unincorporated communities. So there's going to be a pretty big effort required here for the LSDs, for the incorporated municipalities, for the province, for the feds as well. So a lot yet to be fully understood about how and where we rebuild. So here we go, campaign time. I know, like here in the city of St. John's, pretty robust with the number of candidates running in the various wards. You know, who's got a challenge for the mayor's chair. I read a story this morning about out in Cornerbrook, I think there's 15 candidates to fill 6 council seats. So what does it look like otherwise? Because you and I have had conversations in the past where we've had to actually put forward formal campaigns to encourage people to run. We've had towns with not enough candidates to fill the seats in the council chamber. So where are we?
Absolutely. So our Make Your Mark campaign, I think this is our 4th campaign now for the Make Your Mark brand. And this year we ran a You for Council campaign, which we feel has been successful. We'll have some more numbers once the election is closed and we reach out to all of the municipalities and collect that data. But we're hearing that communities who haven't had contested elections in several elections have one this year. We've got, some of the communities that I'm hearing, Portugal Cove St. Phillips has 16 candidates on the ballot. Grand Falls Windsor has 16 candidates. Parsons Pond has 13. The town of Dover has 14 candidates. So, it's been, we're hearing that there are lots of people who are interested in municipal politics, and their names are shown up on the ballot, and it's been extremely encouraging.
I hear a lot about election fatigue, and for the most part, that kind of feels to me like not only are the voters a little bit tired, because this will be the 3rd election by the time the provincial election is on the 14th of October, but it's also about election confusion, apparently. I guess I understand why people would be confused, and I mentioned Cornerbrook, there's confusion out there. Talk about people running for the mayor's chair and someone saying, oh, you're running against Jim Parsons. Jim Parsons isn't running for mayor. He's actually running against, what's the fella's name, who used to be the mayor out in Cornerbrook. They're running against each other in the provincial election. So is confusion a real thing or an exaggerated thing?
No, it's absolutely a real thing, which is why the Make Your Mark campaign, we encouraged individuals to stay away from the colors of the three major political parties, red, blue, and orange. That's difficult to do because a lot of candidates are incumbents, are running again and have materials and signage from previous election campaigns. So unless you're a new candidate or you're purchasing new signs, you may fall into that trap that you have the same color sign as one of the provincial candidates. So, we've been talking about to councillors and candidates about being clear on your brochures that you are running for town council or municipal council. Again, using distinct colors that couldn't be confused with another party's color. Being clear and concise in your messaging. Talking about what municipal services are and how important they are to our residents when you're going door to door. And just, making sure that people understand exactly what it is that you're running for.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess I understand that. And what's also been confusing for some people is with two different elections on the go and the more prominent spots to put your campaign signs, it's flooded. I don't even know if it's working for any candidates anymore, because if I come up to an intersection where there's 14 campaign signs, that's just a blur. And so consequently, maybe that's part of the confusion as well.
Yeah, it certainly doesn't help, and then you're limited as to where you can place your signs, and everybody wants to have their signs in the most visible areas of your communities. So again, it's about strategy and things as well, where you're placing your signs, and how you're promoting yourself. Some communities have municipal forums where the candidates will have an opportunity to talk amongst them, talk to the community. Some of the local community stations and radio stations, air those forums so that the residents at least can be familiar with the names. The town municipal Facebook pages posting the names of municipal candidates running in the election. So again, I can't encourage candidates enough to promote what community you're running for, that it is a municipal or town council that you're running for, and the services that municipalities provide, because a lot of times that's confusing as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything specific you want to talk about this morning, Amy?
No, again, we're M&L is really happy about the Make Your Mark campaign and the success that we've been seeing. We're so pleased to see so many candidates, and I want to say congratulations to all candidates for putting their names on a ballot. We've been hearing all kinds of challenges that municipal councillors face, whether, with regards to running a municipality, the services that you provide, the difficulties that we face with infrastructure challenges and tax bases and business taxes and safe and affordable housing, all of the things that municipalities are responsible for. And then we're coming up on the provincial election at the same time. So it is an opportunity for people, the residents of our community, to talk to and listen to the municipal candidates, but also listen to their feedback. And when your provincial candidates knock on your door, talk to them about the issues that municipalities are facing as well, because a lot of the funding that we rely on to provide the services to our members is dependent on the amount of money that the provincial and federal governments give to us through cost-sharing agreements. So we're the ones, we're boots on the ground. We always say we're the most accessible. And when you wake up in the morning, guaranteed one of the services that you're taking advantage of is supplied to you by your municipality. So, listen, be aware, understand your candidates' platforms, and most importantly, on October 2nd, please get out and exercise your right to vote.
100%. Appreciate the time, Amy. Thank you.
Always thankful.
My
Take
pleasure.
care, Patty.
You too. Bye-bye. And, of course, I mentioned Jim Parsons running for the Liberals out in Corner Brook, running against former Mayor of Corner Brook, Charles Pender. And Jerry Lynn sent me that, so I appreciate that. Of course, Jerry Lynn spent a lot of time on the West Coast. All right, let's take the break right on time. When we come back, we're talking water and whatever you want to talk about. Don't go away. Welcome back. Let's go line number 2. Ralph, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. It's Ralph Strickham, St. Bride's calling. I guess you know who I am by now. I've been fighting for our clean water for the last 5 years.
I do.
And nothing has been done. They finally, thanks to Sherry Gamble, she he gave us a funding for the artesian wells, and they put test wells in on private property, and now we find out some are condemned already, and nothing is done. And here it is going into October, and we will still not have water. And I'll tell you, in 2 years from now, I'll be 80, and I'll be still on the phone with you telling you about our dirty water, because there's no way this is going to happen. The way they got the wells about a quarter of a mile apart, the ones that test wells. So how are they going to hook up to a holding tank to put in water to the households when they got to run all new lines everywhere? Like I can't believe it. We were told, Mr. Harvey came to my house and told me that there'd be no funding given to St. Bride's until the things was in place with the wells. Well, there's a new guy took over, and he came out and gave the funding to St. Bride's, and they went and put artesian wells on private property, and I don't see how that's going to work for us unless they lease it to the council, lease the property back to the council to give us water. The worst screw up I've ever seen, I've been away for nearly 60 years, and I've never seen such a screw up as it is in St. Bride's about the way things are run. And the same thing with he told me there was going to be a monthly meeting for the public meeting for us in St. Bride's after he got back, and if it wasn't, they were coming and taking the council over. That's the last I heard of it. Here it is, 5 years, and I never had a meeting. So I don't even know. I don't even know where to go. Like, our water is still dirty, and I've sent you pictures.
Oh, I've seen it.
And it's still the same. It's even worse now. Like, we have to go up the road to our friend's house to wash our anything that's not dark, because it'll screw it up. And I'm after changing our water tank. I'm after changing all the taps. And there's one thing I got to figure out. When you buy something, you pay for it. Like, it's your, like, we were told that the Council of St. Bride's don't owe any money anywhere. So where's all this water tax and all that going? What are they doing with it? Like, I've been paying for 26 years water tax, and I'm only home 5 years. The other time was 2 weeks at a time. I own this house, and and I can't figure out, once you pay for something, like, if we don't owe anything, what are they doing with the money?
It's a fair question. Yeah. So what do you pay for a water tax out in St. Bride's?
Well, with the total taxes, mine are 500 and something a year. Well, I pay a garbage tax and a poll tax and a water tax. And even with the people has artesian wells where I get my drinking water, he has to pay a water tax in case of a fire. That's what they told him.
Okay.
That don't make sense to me, but if you got your own water, why do you have to pay a water tax? I mean, they must have water in the tanker or get in the pumper. They must be able to put out your fire. Like, there hasn't been a fire around St. Bride's since I've been home anyway. I've never heard, never seen anything going on here. But again, even if they do get the artesian wells up and running, there's supposed to be a holding tank put in. Where the heck are they going to put it? The wells are a quarter of a mile apart.
Yeah, I don't understand the logic or the logistics, to be honest with you. And the fact that there hasn't been a meeting in 5 years for an issue that's decades old is really quite bizarre.
And there's no update on the artesian wells that they drilled. They drilled them a couple of months ago, and nothing. No, the public has no information whatsoever what happened. And I think there was a lot of money involved in that, from what I heard. And again, no information on it. And it's been, we've talked to a council member, it's been between 10 and 12 years since there was a public meeting here.
Which is one of the easiest things to do to show that you're actually concerned with what your residents actually have to say. You shouldn't have to go out of your way or call me or send pictures to just have, leadership in St. Bride's or any other community here in the province to hold fairly regular town hall meetings so people can get up close and personal and ask the questions that are bugging them.
That's it. To put a coffee pot on, let everyone enjoy themselves and have a good meeting, but nothing. They have a meeting not in the town, like a private meeting, which the council has over in the community center, but no one knows what's going on, know what they're talking about, or no information whatsoever has been given to us of what's going on over there. We don't even know, and the mayor, you might see him once in a while going to the post office. That's about it. We don't even, I bet you if anyone knew what he looked like, most of them wouldn't remember. We haven't seen him so long. So we don't know, there's nothing. This is the most secret community I ever been in my life. Is St. Bride's. Everything is done undercover. Everything is hidden from the people, so they don't know what's going on. They're all paying these taxes for what? That well, I bet you if I went and asked for a logbook on the dam where they've done testing on our water, I bet you in 60 years there wouldn't be one page full where they checked our water, see if it was any good. I went up there last couple of months ago to walk down there. I couldn't even get near the dam with alders and that. It was a disgrace. You can't even get near to test the water.
Understood, Ralph. I appreciate your time and your concerns here this morning. Thanks for doing it.
Keep me. You have a good day.
You too. All the best.
Okay,
all right, bye-bye. All right, let's go to line number... Would I take another one before the news here, Dave? All right, we're getting pretty close. Or maybe we could take one and put them on hold if indeed we need to get to the news. Let's see if that's going to work for our caller on 4. Good morning, Reese. You're on the air.
Hi, Paddy. How you doing?
Not too bad. We'll do better when we get a clean line. Dave will take care of you. Anyway, with that unfortunate technical disruption, we will ask Reese to hang tough. Important conversation coming with Reese. And I mentioned the Lewisport Interfaith Goodwill Centre and Food Bank. So thankfully, Tracy Daw took up the invitation for someone out there to talk about what they see. I think it's fair to say when you speak with someone who's working at or volunteering at a food bank, their experience with the clientele and the numbers and how it's growing and the type of support they need, because we do know it's a double-edged sword here, right? With cost of living pressures the way they are, folks not only in the past who did not have to rely on food bank and maybe are having to turn to the food bank, maybe sporadically, but at the exact same time, folks who may have been regular donors to food banks and other charities or not-for-profits over the years, maybe, just maybe, their charitable monies are not what they used to be. And so consequently, when you have no government intervention and people's donation monies drying up somewhat, folks who are working full-time, families, children, seniors needing to turn to food banks, it's really a crying shame. Just think about it out loud. It's 2025 in Canada, and this is not just a Canadian story. This is very much a modern world story. I mean, forget the fact that developing nations, you can only think about how bad it must be for many of those communities. All right, very quickly, want to give an update from NL Health Services. So there's a phone disruption which began in the Twillingate area. So phone services at Notre Dame Bay Memorial Healthcare Centre, they have been now restored. So the worries that people were circulating there, those phone services have been restored. Let's check it on the Twitter box. We're VOCM Open Line, you know what to do. Email address is openline@vocm.com. When we come back, we will indeed speak with Tracy Daw from Lewisport at the Interfaith Goodwill Centre and Food Bank. Reese is back in the queue to talk about what's a dangerous escalation in the conflict in Gaza. We'll let Reese speak Reese's mind. I don't know if that's a man or a woman, so I'm not going to predetermine who that might be. So we'll get to Reese, and then we're going to get to you right after this. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 3. Good morning, Reese. You're on the air.
Hey, Paddy. How are you?
Doing okay, thank you. How about you?
Good, thank you. You can hear me now.
I can hear you now, yes.
Okay, great. I wanted to bring focus to some international news. You mentioned it before the break there about Israel's escalating attacks. They're currently, yesterday they attacked civilian boats that are attempting to deliver aid to Gaza. And I haven't seen too much news about that, so I did want to surface that.
I'm happy to talk about it. Sometimes, for me, I don't really know what people want to talk about, which is why I just kind of throw the door open. So whether it be the flip-flop by Donald Trump now, of course, supporting Ukraine, it's just wild stuff. But let's get into it. So this is the global Samud flotilla.
It is, yeah, and it has its ties to a flotilla that is also setting sail in the coming weeks that has in fact 3 Newfoundlanders on it, and right now the attacks that are being performed on the civilian ships, they're tied up with Israel kind of manufacturing consent in their public communications about that this is a Hamas Samud flotilla, and they are definitely shaping it in the way that they previously have to violently attack this crew, and very concerned. There are Canadians on this ship as well. And I'm hoping that governments can step up. We have Italy and Spain both publicly speaking to sending naval ships to assist in this humanitarian effort. And I'm also aware that there is the HMCS St. John's currently off Portugal, and Canada could just as well also offer support there. It'd be great to see.
So in case people haven't seen these stories, so what's happening is Israeli drones are flying overhead these relief ships in the flotilla and dropping flashbangs and other objects right onto the ships. So, everything that when the Israelis and or the IDF were quick to label everything Hamas, when we know full well in the past, and this is well documented, this is not misinformation, is that they've held trucks at bay trying to bring in aid, trying to bring in food. And the international community knows this, and this is just another extension of using food and support as a weapon of war. And it doesn't matter what you think about what side you should or could be on, it's been well understood that food and the weaponization of aid is a war crime.
That's exactly right, and they continue to say to deliver this aid through their channels, through their control. But we know it's well documented that is insufficient. There is starvation being performed upon the Palestinians there by Israeli forces, and this is simply civilians trying to do what they can because their governments are not assisting in ending this genocide, a genocide that has been declared by the UN, by Amnesty International, by Doctors Without Borders, and many other global organizations.
Look, if people want to call it ethnic cleansing or a genocide, I'll leave the labeling up to whoever would like to speak about it here on the program. But, when I'm told that, Palestinians are Hamas, even when you hear Canada and some other 145 countries in the world acknowledge a free state of Palestine, let's just add some history to this. So, not everybody is Hamas, number one. Number two, the last time there was an election in Gaza, it was around 20 years ago, where Hamas were indeed elected, but half of the population of the Gaza Strip at that point were under the age of 18, so they didn't vote for anything. Right? So with the Israelis pushing further into Gaza City, their declarations, whether it be from Benjamin Netanyahu or Ben Giver or anybody else, their goals are clear. We're not reading between the lines. We're not making stuff up. We're not opining. We're going by exactly what the Israelis are saying here. They are going to push forward until there's nothing left of the Strip. You look at a before and after of Gaza City in 2000 or in 2020, and then a picture of it today. It was once a pretty normal looking city, and now it's rubbled.
Absolutely, yeah. It's been decimated, and I hate to think of a government or a governing body being adding the responsibility of their civilians to actions. So the prime example of Canada being complicit in this genocide, we are helping arm Israel in what they are doing, and I, as a citizen of Canada, would not want to bear the responsibility of that. I do not support my government doing that, and that is collective punishment if our citizens were to be on the receiving end of that. It's hard not to see the parallel there with the unbelievable amount of civilian harm that has been done to Palestinians.
These are obviously very difficult conversations to have. And for just speaking from my perspective, the conversations that are the most difficult to have, the trickiest, the most emotional, are the most important ones to have, whether people like it or not. And, for people to just simply hang their hat on October 7th is a bit of a misunderstanding of history here as well. So Hamas, let me get this out of the way. Hamas is a terrorist organization, period, the end. But the October 7th triggering of this conflict is part and parcel of decades of rising tensions. It simply is. And any pathway to peace, and I don't pretend to have the diplomatic chops to know where the pathway is, but if it doesn't begin with re-engaging the whole conversation of a two-state solution, then I don't know where it starts. I really don't. So people will admonish the Prime Minister here and in the UK and in Australia, and the other 142 countries have done the same thing, acknowledging a free state of Palestine, unless that's the beginning, because that also includes disarming Hamas and for them to never allowed to be able to form government into the future. That might be utopian and that might be, cockeyed optimism or naive, but it's part of the conversation.
Right, yeah. And I feel like it's the statehood, that's an important conversation, but it feels like an utter distraction right now when it doesn't seem to have any material change to what is happening on the ground. And there's constantly the conversation pushed towards the terrorism of Hamas, and I don't know how we cannot label the IDF as a terrorist organization as well when this genocide is being performed. And again, I'm using this word that is used by international bodies that assess this. This is not my opinion. This is what is happening right now.
Yeah, I guess my point about the state of Palestine is I'm just using that as a starting point to any conversation regarding peace. It does not deflect, or at least I'm not trying to deflect from what's actually happening on the ground. But if peace is going to be the hope, and you would imagine right-minded people in the international community are hoping for peace and a pathway to, if it doesn't start with a recognition of a free state of Palestine, then I don't know where we start. That's the only point I was trying to make there.
Oh, got it. Yeah, I understand, Paddy. Yeah, and I'd love anyone listening to try to reach out to their MPs about this, talk to their representatives, and I'm also going to highlight, as someone who has endeavoured to do this themselves, that's also incredibly hard, and it feels like the levels that get up to anyone who can make those decisions is prevented. Following the proper channels of communication. As a key example, I'd like to highlight Joanne Thompson, who refuses for 2 years to speak to any of her constituents about this. She's received hundreds of letters, calls, emails, office visits, which are in a private building, mind you, so it's easily pointed to that you cannot enter this private building to try to meet with your representative. I think a lot of people feel defeated by the lack of support we can even provide as constituents, as members down at the bottom here, when these are big changes that need to be made at the government level.
I appreciate you making time for the program and your patience this morning. Reese, would you like to say anything else?
No, that's all. Thank you. Yeah, try to get in touch with your MPs. Show your solidarity if you support Palestine. It's never too late. There's a march on October 4th. It would be great to see everyone come out and show their humanity. Appreciate your time. Thank you. Thank you, Paddy. You're welcome. Take Bye-bye. Care. And look, the last time, or one of the more recent times, where a conversation regarding the conflict and the war in Gaza was had on this program, there are media watchdog outlets out there that inevitably will pick up on this and will inevitably get back in touch with our management here. You know, when people use the word genocide, it is a lot. I get it. There was certainly no problem when people use the word genocide regarding what happened in Rwanda. So I don't know what the benchmark or the threshold is that needs to be reached for people to be able to, without fear of repercussion or reprisal, to use that word. And as Reese pointed out, he's not using that word because it's his word. The Amnesty International and the United Nations have used that word as well. So talking about the realities on the ground, and once again, if you're concerned with what you see, it doesn't make you anti-Semitic. Questioning the Israeli leadership, questioning the operations of the defense forces, the Israeli defense forces, doesn't make you anti-Semitic. I mean, even the Jewish community in the United States, who speak out on this quite frequently, they're talking about it's a purposeful conflation between being Jewish, the Jewish community, and the state of Israel. When, you know, in real terms, we should be able to not separate the two, because it's not that, like, it's as simple as that, but to be able to speak about it and not say that simply the state of Israel and the actions of the IDF are fully representative of the Jewish community. I mean, even the most far right-leaning newspaper outlet in Israel and many Israeli citizens speaking out as to what they see. So if the Jewish people in Israel and or major Jewish communities in the United States are willing and wanting to talk about what's actually happening versus the fear of being told that you're simply a Jew hater or anti-Semitic, it's just like when we talk about immigration in this country. If someone who has concerns about immigration is immediately branded a racist, you know what happens? The conversation stops. And stopping conversations on important matters is in nobody's best interest. Let's go ahead and take a break. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number one. Let's take a morning to Tracy Daw with the Interfaith and Goodwill Center and Food Bank out in Lewisport. And join us on line number one. Tracy, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. How are you today?
I'm very well. Thanks for asking. How about you?
I'm great, thank you. Beautiful day here in Lewisport.
Glad to hear it. Lovely here in town as well. I'm glad you took me up on my offer to have someone from your organization to come on the program. First off, I think it's probably fair to say that food bank operators, volunteers, and employees see something very similar across the board, and that's an uptick in patrons and a different look at the patrons. What are you seeing in Lewisport?
In Lewisport, our food bank numbers are increasing each week, actually, as the cost of living is rising, so is the need for food. In Newfoundland, in 2024, 30.1% of people and families face food insecurities. So obviously the need and demand are very high right now.
I know for some people in my social circles who have been quite generous in the past and make donations to organizations like food banks, but they're experiencing the cost of living pressures as well. So consequently, what might have been a $20 bill is now a $5 bill. So are you seeing the double-edged sword here, an uptick in demand and also a decrease in donations, or what's your experience in Lewisport?
That most certainly is the case here as well. As you alluded to, the numbers of donations, obviously, because everybody is facing a cost of living increase, so the donation levels are down. However, in Lewisport, we are fortunate enough to have a thrift store associated with our food bank, so people from the town and surrounding areas make donations of items. We have volunteers. Actually, currently we have over 120 valuable volunteers at our center, which will sort donations. We sell them in our thrift store, which is open 4 days a week from 1 to 4, Monday through Thursday. And the sales from our thrift store help sustain our food bank. So we are fortunate in that regard. But however, as you said, the donations obviously are down because everybody is facing an increase in their cost of living.
Here's just a very basic question: we know the generosity of donors is certainly most welcome. The activities and the energy from volunteers is much appreciated. How can government help?
Each government, I'm sure, I'm not here today to get into political because we're in the middle of an election, and I never know what side I'm going to have to be reaching out to at the end. However, there needs to be strong poverty reduction plans. There needs to be implementation of programming, in my opinion. Sometimes food banks, we're putting Band-Aids, we're giving emergency food for only 3 days. So that's a Band-Aid to get people through, through the crisis or the week that there's lack of monies or what have you. However, I feel that there needs to be more programming for mental illness, for addictions. Another statistic out there is that 2/3 of people that come to food banks are on income support. Let's get more programming for job search. Let's teach people about budgeting. There needs to be some more programming to get these people where they need to be so they no longer are in need of the food bank. And I would suggest when these governments are implementing their poverty reduction plans or when they're developing them, to reach out to give people such as people managing food banks or different organizations that deal with this first-hand voices. They need to hear the stories. They need to hear what these people are going through, what the problems are, what the issues are. So then if they're hearing firsthand what's happening, I'm sure better implementation of poverty reduction plans will take place.
Yeah, I mean, at one point here in this province, we had a poverty reduction strategy that was applauded across the country, and then it sort of just went away. I don't know why. And I'd pick up on a point you made about, how to budget and financial literacy. Some of that begins in school. Because when you get them young, then, of course, it becomes part of their mindset going into their adult years. And consequently, maybe we can avoid some of what we see here regarding the inability to pay, the amount of food insecurity here in the province and right across the country. And we have to stop pretending this is a problem unique to this province. It's not. It's right across the country. Tracy, anything else you have to say this morning while we have you?
No, I just think important issues. Again, more and more people are coming, more seniors are coming. We need to get all on the same page. We need to get programming in place. We need, it's also things that we need to work together. We need to collaborate together to get these people, like in schools, for example, they're putting in the programming with the lunch programs, with the breakfast programs. You said about starting with school-age children. That's also a start. Let's get rid of the food insecurities with children. Us at the Interfaith the World Center this summer, we doubled up on lunch bags. We give lunch snacks. In the summer, the kids are at home, and sometimes schools are safe havens for these kids because they're getting breakfast, they're getting lunch programs. So we've seen the need. Now they're out of school in the summer. So we also follow through with doubling up on that. So we need to get to the school-age children. We provide backpacks. At the Interfaith of the World, that's our core. Let's get people where they need to be. And in my personal opinion, helping those in need is indeed a wonderful thing to do.
Well said, Tracy. Really appreciate your time. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. You have yourself a great day, Patty.
You too. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Good stuff there. Let's go to line number 2. William, you're on the air.
Yes, Patty. I was just wondering if you heard anything from the news. Some while back a few months ago, there was a ship that lost power and went ashore, and they got most of the oil and stuff over a bulk carrier. And I was just wondering if they're going to be able to retrieve it or not.
Well, that's the plan. And so William was talking about the MSC Baltic 3, I'm pretty sure. And that ran aground out in Wild Cove, the middle of February at some time. And yet they lost power, then they ran aground. So they've removed a lot of the oil. They've only found some of those tar balls on the shoreline. There's still plenty of concern with environmental pollution, but there has been no reported fuel leakage beyond those few tar balls that have been found. So my understanding is they still continue to aspire to get it off the rocks and out of there, but we were told there a month ago that it's still going to take a couple of months, 2 or 3 months from now. Why exactly, I'm not 100% sure.
Well, I hope it doesn't take too much longer, because the next they're going to have a bit of rough weather coming their way, and I'd like to get it out of there as soon as possible.
Yeah, I'll get an update. There was a sort of a delay getting at it that's because of access to the site. But
I understand.
Yeah, but now they've figured that out, and they've done some of that work. So I don't have an up-to-the-minute update on the Baltic 3, but I'll get one.
Yeah, but I'll assure you, Patty, that the thing is that I heard now that they got most of the oil and that most of their containers have been retrieved. So it's nice to know that apparently there's not. It doesn't seem like there's any severe damage whereby it can't be removed.
No, I think you're right. So we'll get a comment from the Canadian Coast Guard. And that should be relatively easy, because we don't need the operational update. We simply need to know where we are in the timeline for that to be removed from the rocks. So I will get that. I hadn't thought about it in a while, but now I will.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, and I also appreciate your time. You're doing a wonderful job. I don't think you're the producer. I don't think that there's a topic that you can't touch on.
Well, you never know what's coming until you press the button.
No, you don't. You're doing a marvelous job.
Thank you, William. I appreciate your time this morning.
Yeah, and you too. You and your producer have a great day.
You too. Stay in touch.
Okay.
Okay, bye-bye. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the caller that led off the show, talk about the trap house and what the law enforcement knows or does not know, what they do or do not do. Then we're going to talk about aquaculture as well. Then, thankfully, there's a lady in the queue to talk about what happened last night at the first disaster emergency meeting when we talk about the unincorporated communities up the North Shore as a result of the fire and the need to rebuild. That and you. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go. Line number 4. Good morning, Mike. You're on the air.
Yeah, good morning, Patty. How are you?
Great today. Thank you. How about you?
Good. Patty, I heard that lady call in this morning about the trap house or the drug house in their neighborhood. And I heard, another woman called in a couple of weeks ago saying that she had the same kind of issue and her car had been broken into 19 times over the last year. And then there was calls from people, I think they were out out around the Point Leamington area talking about drug houses in their rural communities and the same kind of problems and nobody doing anything and the police not doing anything. I wanted to lay out a few facts on all this, if you got a few minutes.
Sure.
All right. The first thing is, I guess, is that the police don't really have any authority to do anything about this. The criminal law is all about individual criminals and individual crime. If they go into a drug house and arrest one person, they don't have any authority to turn anybody else out of the house or shut the house down. So you got to start from there. The police and the criminal code are not set up to deal with this kind of problem. But I'll tell you who is, and I'll tell you who has the authority. And in St. John's, that would be the city of St. John's. I have to say, I followed the municipal election campaign, and I've been really disappointed with the campaign in general. Hardly any of the candidates mentioned the City of St. John's Act, and although several people did, but nobody has talked about the specifics of what authority the city has to deal with these drug houses that are like a cancer in certain neighborhoods. And I got to say, I live downtown. I know exactly what people are talking about. I'm sure the mayor knows, but the mayor is all very much not our job. I'm sure he's happy nobody's mentioned it because they're not interested in taking it on. But let me take you through a couple of sections of the City of St. John's Act. City of St. John's Act has about 400 sections, so it takes a while to read through. But when you get down to the latter part of it, so first of all, under Section 363, the city can grant or revoke occupancy permits, right? Okay, that's a known fact. Under Section 369, there's an obligation to keep properties in a good state, especially rental properties in a state of cleanliness and good repair. And under Section 370, there's a prohibition against dirt and garbage outside, syringes, that kind of stuff. Okay? Now, so that sets it all up. And then the key section is Section 375 of the City of St. John's Act. I don't know the last time anybody took action under it, but it's there and it's in black and white. It's under Section 375. An employee of council may enter upon and inspect any dilapidated or dangerous building in the city. So, I mean, there's no threshold there. The city inspectors have the absolute power to walk into any property that appears dilapidated or dangerous. And after written notice to the owner of the building, the council may judge the building to be a nuisance and may make a written order prescribing the building, or it can order the vacation, or that means eviction, of residents, or demolition of any building. Where the order referred to in subsection 1 is not complied with within 5 days, the city can order that the order be executed by the council through officers, agents, employees, or contractors who shall be entitled to enter the building forcibly where necessary, eject the occupants, and send the bill to the owner of the building. Under subsection 3, any person who refuses or fails to comply with one of these orders is guilty of a summary conviction offense and can be fined or sent to jail for 90 days. A person who refuses to vacate a building or who obstructs or interferes with a person in the discharge of his duties is in the same situation. And there are a number of sections dealing with similar matters. They're all there between 375 and say 385 of the City of St. John's Act. I mean, the city has enormous powers. You take this lady here. Upon all the reports she's received, even the Buddy's handyman is afraid to go in the building, and stuff and garbage piled up outside. The city could send inspectors in today. They could shut it down. They could revoke the occupancy permit, kick everybody out of the house, and give the landlord 5 days to make repairs. And that power has been there for 50 years. And as to the best of my knowledge, they've never used it, and I'd like to know why not, really.
Yeah, I mean, I know the city has enforced people cleaning up their property and some fundamentals such as that, and this is very helpful information, Mike, some of which I knew, some of which I was pretty cloudy on, but let's just bounce this out there. Let's just say all those authorities are granted to city inspectors via the Act. When we see the headlines and the news stories and the reveal of the drugs being seized and the cash that comes with it, inevitably there's all sorts of firearms as well. So can we convince a home inspector working for the city to want to walk into those particular properties? I mean, like if I was an inspector, you said, well, your job today is go into this quote-unquote trap house and begin the process of shutting it down. I'm pretty sure I'm happy enough to look for another job.
Well, I mean, the other thing, too, is that it includes agents, employees, or contractors. I mean, the city could contract with the police to do this. There's no reason they couldn't. And also, actually, so that's the City of St. John's Act. And you also hear calls from communities outside St. John's who are having similar problems. I remember I can't remember what community it was. I said Point Leamington, but I could be wrong about that, where the senior citizens were all terrorized by this drug house, and the police were saying there's nothing they could do about it. I mean, both the Liberals and Conservatives came out with their justice platforms yesterday. I mean, where's the focus about people feeling safe in their houses? I mean, sure, opening up the detachment in Grand Bank again, it'd be nice for people to see cops on the street. But if the cops don't have the power to shut down these places, I mean, it's not really going to make a difference. I'll tell you what, in Saskatchewan, very similar to the City of St. John's powers, in Saskatchewan, they have a piece of legislation called the Safer Communities and Neighborhood Acts, and has been in force for more than 20 years, so it's not new. And it would protect rural communities, whether they're incorporated or not. And based on a community complaint or a police complaint, a property can be closed down and the tenants evicted. And over the past 20 years, according to what I've read in the media and looked up in Saskatchewan, hundreds of evictions and there's been properties shut down. And according to what they say in Saskatchewan, once an investigation is started, often the problem individuals move out on their own. And all you got to do is have a reasonable belief that the residence is involved in crime, drugs, gangs, or prostitution. And under the City of St. John's Act, or under this legislation that they have in Saskatchewan, the burden of proof, if it ever goes to court, is on a balance of probabilities, which means 51%. It's not like a criminal charge that you got to prove beyond 90. You got to prove 99%. So, I mean, these tools are there. And, I mean, nobody appears to care about the quality of life of the people who are living in these communities and neighborhoods. And the tools are there to do something about it, and nobody ever brings it up.
And I'm glad you are. It really has the distinct feeling of passing the buck. I don't even know whether or not the current members of St. John City Council, because I know municipalities outside the city are governed by a different piece of legislation, but
that's right.
I wonder how many people actually on council, including from the mayor on down, are fully aware of the powers of the city. Because, we'll talk about partnering with law enforcement, and to your point, you can contract law enforcement to enforce some of these implications of the Act. But again, most everybody just thinks unless the RNC do something, nobody else can. Now, this morning I tried to incorporate the concept of a landlord, which you have as well here this afternoon. Yeah. This afternoon. So this is really helpful information. So when we have an opportunity to speak with municipal leaders, we'll refer to their piece of legislation. When we have an opportunity to speak with candidates running here in town, whether or not, whether it be incumbents or otherwise, do you know about the powers, and are you willing to make sure that council enforces them? Perfectly.
Yes, I mean, those powers have been there for 50 years.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, and I mean, the city inspectors could go in today and shut down the drug house in that lady's neighborhood. And I mean, like I said, the police, the criminal code is not set up for this kind of stuff. This is for city and provincial governments. The police are there. The criminal code deals with individual criminals committing individual crimes. The police have no power to shut down a drug house, but the city does and the province does.
And they all must play a role and much more effectively than currently. Mike, really appreciate the time this morning. Thanks for doing it.
Okay. All right.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
Pretty helpful stuff there. I mean, when people take the time to break down different sections of legislation like that, I think that helps inform the conversation regarding public safety in these trap houses, many of which have been plaguing neighborhoods for a very long time. Let's take a break. Sharon, appreciate your patience. You stay right there to talk about aquaculture. Don't go away. Go back to the show. Let's go to line number 2. Will, you're on the air.
Good day, sir. How are you?
Doing very well. How about you?
Not too bad. I just went to the advanced poll and voted. So I have my driver's license to show my ID like we always had to. They said this year you don't need to show ID or verify who you are.
What? No ID?
No ID. They said the new rules, they don't need to show ID. I said, but how do you prove who I am? They said, well, we just mark your name off. I said, okay. I said, what if I'm pretending to be someone and then I come in to vote? Am I allowed to vote? They said, yeah, you just sign an affidavit and you can vote. I said, so 2 names can get 1 vote. They said, no. I said, okay, well, how do you take away the other vote? They said, well, we'll just get you to sign an affidavit. I'm like, but you're not understanding what I'm telling you. If someone pretends to be me, then I come in, technically my name got 2 votes.
Absolutely, which could be avoided in full if you had to present ID. I mean, like in municipalities, it's not only the ID to prove that you're a Canadian citizen, that you're over the age of 18, but you also have to be a resident of one community or another 30 days prior to the election day. So, sometimes it used to be the case, not only did you have to have an ID, you had to have something like a hydro bill or something that proved that your address matched up with your license, things like that.
Yep, so I just voted about a half hour ago, and nope, no ID required.
Strangest thing ever, and should never be the case.
No. So, I mean, how do you verify who's who or what votes are legit?
Well, they're making it virtually impossible. Because your point is well taken. Like if I go in and say I'm Will,
to be my neighbor.
Yeah, that's right. If I walk in and say I'm Will, I live on Nearest Pound Road. Here, give me a ballot. I vote, and it wasn't Will, it was Paddy Daly. Then you go in and just sign an affidavit. That was at least 1 vote that was incorrectly given. It just doesn't make any sense.
Nope.
Now, we got to make it easy for people to get an ID. Like, for instance, if you need a photo of government issue ID, you can go to motor vehicle, and it doesn't have to be an actual driver's license. It's just a government issued ID. So let's make it easy for people to get identification, but let's require it when you vote.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, I didn't know that was the case. We'll follow up directly with MNL. Had Amy Cody on earlier. Wish I knew this was the case. And we'll go to the Cove and see what they have to say for themselves.
Yeah, because like I said, I asked. I said, like, I've always had to do it. They said, oh, yeah, these are the new rules from Elections NL.
Yeah, and I don't even know why Elections NL are setting the rules for municipal elections directly. I'll go to the department. I'll go to to MNL, the Department of Municipal Affairs, and Elections NL, and the Cove, just to see if someone can offer me some rationale behind this.
Perfect. Thank you, sir.
I appreciate your information. Thanks for the time.
Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye. Like, what? All right, let's keep going. Let's go to line number 6. And good morning, Betty. You're on the air.
Good morning. How are you this morning?
I'm very well. How about you?
I'm perfect. Thank you very much for asking.
I'm glad to hear you're doing well. I appreciate your time this morning. Let's talk about what was going on at the meeting last night to talk about rebuilding the unincorporated communities up the North Shore.
Okay. So first of all, I'd just like to acknowledge the fact that I was invited in. I'm originally from Northern Bay. I grew up there. My brother's living here. My ancestors are from, like my grandmothers, and them are from Gull Island and Western Bay. So I've got a history on the North Shore. I've had my ancestral mother's home was destroyed in the fire. I've got cousins who are displaced because their homes have been destroyed in the fire as well. So I have a personal connection and a personal interest in rebuilding the North Shore. And second to that is that my background is in disaster emergency management. I've been a disaster emergency manager now for 15 years. And a consultant for that time. And I also worked as a regional health emergency coordinator with Central Health and did some contract work with Labrador-Grenville Health. So in addition to that, I was a social worker, and I have experience with that in both as a manager and a social work professional for 25 years. So I'm like 100 years old.
You've got a pretty impressive background, and rightfully, invited to this meeting. So I've been told by various emailers that it was a really good start, good first meeting. Your experience?
It was. So the two organisers, Stella Johnson and Bob Kennel, they're from the communities of Northern Bay and Oakwood Cove. They decided to pull together the unincorporated residents together and have a town hall. So basically, it was an opportunity for people to come together and talk about, it was set up with an agenda. They had some background information on me as a moderator. That's why I was asked to come in and coordinate, because of my background and because of my connection to the North Shore. So basically, the agenda was followed to the T, and people were given an opportunity to come forward and tell their stories, express their concerns of how things are progressing, if they had any, as well as how we can move forward. So basically, we talked about ways in a holistic way of how they want to move forward. And the decision was made that they want to move forward in cooperation with the municipality from Small Point to Adams Cove.
And what does move forward actually look like? Because, when the cleanup is done and people make individual decisions about whether or not they want to rebuild there or how they rebuild, and it's more complex than I think people just say, oh, well, I'm just going to put my house back where it was. So what are next steps here? It's good to have good opening conversations, but where to from here?
Yeah. Well, the big thing is that there's no agenda to have to go incorporated in the non-incorporated communities. Mm-hmm. So basically, what we would like to see would be an advisory group where you'd have representatives, 4 from each of the non-incorporated communities, 1 from each, and then a representative 4 as well from the incorporated. So this would be what we're hoping would be a group that would come together and develop a guidelines each, and then come together and develop an MOU, and that would be a binding document. So at the end of the day, then both will be recognized as equal partnership. And so in terms of moving forward, we're looking at what's called a strength-based approach in rebuilding and recovery. So that basically looks what services and supports do you have there now in your communities, and the human resources piece of it. The individuals on the North Shore, even though it's a rural kind of remote area, have wonderful qualified people in all aspects of the areas that we need to focus on. So, for example, we need to look at housing. That's a priority the people identified last night. So we looked at housing, we looked at safety and security, we looked at, rebuilding in terms of infrastructure, we looked at debris management, and of course, funding, like how are we going to access resources for funding, whether that be through government funding, disaster relief funding, or funding that has been done in terms of fundraising, like through the Red Cross or through other initiatives. So, for example, the Mary Brown's evening that provided like a lot of money. So, in addition to that, of course, concern was raised by communications and how we need to have open communications and be transparent around all of these concerns and how we rebuild. So basically, in emergency management, we're talking about build back better. So in terms of building back better, we need to look at what was actually lost in the fire. And there was huge amount of destruction. Like personal trauma is one thing that people have experienced and will continue to experience for a long time. I mean, running out of your house to escape flames, and that went on in both May and in August month. So that has a long-term impact on people. So we need to look at a psychosocial approach to that. We also need to look at housing needs to be a priority as well. People still are living with relatives, but some people are living in a hotel with families, with children. Some other people are living on another shore, which is like Trinity Bay. And, of course, when you lose your home and now you're displaced and you're living outside of the area where you get your support, you're losing your community as well. So that's compounded. So, it's very complex, as you say. And so, when we come together, all of these concerns will have to be looked at. So you'll need various, I believe, different groups working together under the main overseeing group to focus on these type of things, whether it be finances or housing or psychosocial or governance, right? Environment is another concern, like in terms of, the debris and the forestry, reforestation. We need to look at the big picture in terms of climate change and hurricanes and erosion from these fires in terms of, there could be landslides and stuff. So it's huge. It's a big undertaking. We're looking at immediate and short term and then long term planning and goal setting.
Yeah, then you add in water testing and the type of vegetation that's replanted. I mean, there's a lot to this, as you rightfully point out, Betty. It'd be nice to have a timeline from the federal government about access to federal disaster relief funds. It'd be nice to know a bit more about what the government says is we will be there to support you, because without those two entities, there'd be a lot of scrambling. Betty, this is a good review of what went on last night. I certainly appreciate your time.
Okay. The other thing is that this meeting last night was one meeting. There's going to be other meetings. There's going to be other town halls, but hopefully, we can come together as a coordinated, integrated group, right? And that part of that group then will be, I know that there's going to be some discussions with, ADM for public safety as well as municipal affairs. There's, and then we'll talk about how we're going to access these funds and how we're going to use model. In fact, I had mentioned this before, that I believe that, with climate change, that we're going to have to look at a model that's going to look at Build Back Better, but also one that could be used for the province. Because sadly, and if you look at statistics and if you look at the environment and talk to meteorologists and stuff, this event is very tragic. But we're going to see more forest events. Look at British Columbia and Alberta. So taking that in mind, we need to be able to develop a really comprehensive plan that could be used as a guidelines maybe for other communities should they ever be impacted. And please God, they won't be, but you don't know that. Yeah,
a good template with enough flexibility to be accommodating any other natural disaster, whether it be fire, flood, and who knows what. I really appreciate the time, Betty. Thanks for doing it.
No problem. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Bye-bye. She was great. Let's take a break for the news. Don't go away.
You're listening to a rebroadcast of VOCM Open Line. Have your say by calling 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626 and listen live weekday mornings at 9 a.m.
Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 3. Say good morning to the Vice President of the Rotary Club of St. John's Northwest. That's Regina Russell. Regina, you're on the air.
Hi, Patty. How are you today?
I'm great. How about you?
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. And You're having a wonderful show, and it's always positive and diversive, and it was a joy to just listen to it again.
I'm glad you're tuning in. I appreciate your time. What's on your mind?
Today, I wanted to give some attention to one of our major fundraisers for this year. Our Rotary Club is very active in our community, and we have two major fundraisers in our Rotary year. And this is one called the Trip of the Month. And what it is a ticket to win 12 chances on trips. We draw a trip every month at one of our meetings. And the lucky winner gets a $500 spending cash with each trip. There's also 5 winners of $150 at that same draw. And if you do win, your name goes right back in the drum again. So you get 72 chances to win on just this one ticket. And our early bird draw this year is going to be to Portugal, and that's going to be drawn on October the 10th. So all of our tickets right now have to be sold by September 7th. So we wanted to let everybody know. And the proceeds of all of this fundraising that we're doing is going to our major charities like our Hope Air, Easter Seals, Thrive, Daffodil House, Jacob Puddester Memorial Foundation. We have a housing development that we're trying to get off the ground again in the near future called Rotary Place. And we're also in the process now of trying to get some grants and funding for the fire recovery because that is such a devastating loss to our province. And so I'm working with Rotary International and our Rotary District to get some money for that as well. And that's in the process as we speak.
This is awesome. I have actually bought tickets on this in the past. One of my pals won a trip to Ireland once, so it's a thing. So tickets are $150. I know there's less than 1,000 printed. I can't remember the exact number. I did have a look a little while ago.
Yep, there's 900 tickets printed. We have increased our prizes for the trips. We're going to Ireland, Spain, Italy, Punta Cana, Costa Rica. We have some Canadian fabulous trips as well included this year. So we just wanted to get the news out that they are available. They are selling quickly, but we'd like to get some more sales so that we can help support our charities.
And so I think you said the deadline is September 7th, but I'm pretty sure you meant October 7th for it to be sold, right?
October 7th.
Yeah.
October the 7th, they have to be purchased. And the early bird draw to Portugal is going to be drawn on October the 10th.
Awesome. So for those who maybe don't like or don't want to travel but want to support the causes that you mentioned, I think there's an opportunity to take 85% of the travel cost as cash if you are so inclined.
Yes, you can get you can change the trip to an alternative trip if you want to and still get your $500 spending money, or you can take 85% of that trip in a gift card.
It's fantastic. Really appreciate you telling us about it this morning, Regina. And folks, if you're so inclined, what do they need to do to get a ticket?
They can go on to our website at www.northwestrotary.org. We are on Facebook at Rotary Club of St. John's Northwest. We're on Instagram at Rotary St. John's SNW. Or you can contact any of our Rotary members if you know them, and we all have tickets to sell.
Fantastic stuff. Good luck with it, Regina.
Thank you so much, Patty, and thank you for giving us some airtime to be able to share the news.
Pleasure. Stay in touch.
Take care. All the best.
All right. Bye-bye. It's Regina Russell.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Same to you. Regina Russell, VP, Rotary St. John's Northwest. A little trip sounds about right. I mean, the cost of travel is out of reach for most, but maybe, not everyone's got $150 to spend on a ticket, but imagine winning one of those trips. Man, oh man. Let me see if I can scrape it together. Sharon, really appreciate your patience. She's in the queue to talk about aquaculture right after this. Welcome back. Let's go to line number 4. Sharon, you're on the air.
Hi, Patty. It's
Hi.
Sharon Pickett. I'm from Maidstone, St. David's in Bay St. George South. I spoke with you in 2019. And I wanted to bring to everyone's attention the effects that this aquaculture die-off is having on my community, the whole community of Bay St. George South. It's excessive amounts. Monday morning, I was working in the kitchen. I witnessed 3 tractor-trailer loads, empties, go up, 1 every hour. I took pictures. And like normally what I do is I hear the trucks and I try to avoid looking at it because I get so upset. But the smell here is horrific. We can't go outdoors. We can't open our windows, same as 2019. I suggest even worse than 2019. And everyone is feeling it. Everybody is breathing it. What impact is it having on our health? And like there's no recourse. Like all government, same as in 2019, I contacted every government department, every official that I could think of, and nothing was done. And like it's continuous. Like my husband and I built a beautiful home that and a nice yard, that we had a garden. We were self-sufficient in our own vegetables. I can't even go out and look after my yard and garden anymore. Like, I don't know where to turn. And, like, for the election leaders who are supporting this, like, they're in an office in St. John's signing off, okay, this is approved to expand this up the South Coast. If we're having this amount of die-offs now, what's going to happen? Global warming is getting worse, and we're going to have more and more of it. And I don't believe that the digester at New World Dairy can handle the excessive amounts that is coming in here. Rumor is it's being buried in the ground, it's buried in the sawdust pile. No one monitors. Apparently, they have a permit, was told to us in 2019, to take this amount. But who knows how much is going down there. And like I said, within the last half hour, 2 loads went down. We don't know where to turn. We don't know what to do. Now, Monday, I was only home until 1 o'clock. I left the house, so I don't know what went on after that. But my family, neighbors, and friends told me the few days that I was gone, it was the worst ever. When I came back, I can't see out my windows. It's like a oily film over it, like, and you can't get it off. It's on my car, whatever. So I went to Monday. I left home 1 o'clock. I went to the Atlantic Salmon Federation presentation at Grenfell College in Corner Brook on Monday night. And it's an eye-opener to what is happening with this industry, and what a lady from BC spoke about the impact and how it was the Indigenous had finally got it shut down. I think it was on the eastern side of Vancouver Island, and that was in 2022. She showed the video of the salmon in that river in this year, and you couldn't see the bottom of the river. There was that many salmon, wild salmon there. So on the western side, they still have the aquaculture, and there's no wild salmon. And what does it take for government to recognize what an environmental impact this is having on our whole island? Like, this is being farmed on the south coast in Hermitage Bay, and like the whole of the island is feeling the effects.
Fair enough, and that's why there's a protest today about these die-offs in Burgeo as well.
That's right.
I see your photographs, and I appreciate you sending along the information. You know, the question I would have, similar to yours, is it'd be nice to know exactly what's going on with the amount of salmon that have been taken out of the water, whether or not they're being buried or not. Important question, and I have no idea why the Department of Environment is not monitoring this. And secondly, even for the companies themselves, if the trend of warming waters and depleted oxygen levels is the cause for these die-offs, that's because they say so. What's to believe that into the future it's not only going to get worse?
That's right. That's what we're saying. We can't live in our homes now. My neighbor next door, she just moved to Stephenville in an apartment. She was a walker. She couldn't walk. She's going through cancer. She opened her window. She hung her clothes on the line. We can't do none of the normal things that we usually did. And the other part of this is they talk about the environment. They shut down all the local garbage incinerators in the area because of the environmental impact. What about all the trucks coming from Hermitage Bay to Maidstone? It's over 600 kilometers each way. and a steady, like I'm not lying, a steady stream. And like these salmon and these die-off fish, that's over a month now they've been dead. You can imagine when you put your fish wrappers or whatever in the garbage, how long that stinks. That's infested with maggots. It's coming down through our community. My sister-in-law there a few weeks ago witnessed one of the trucks came down. She was out in her yard, and the cover was off of one of the tubs. You can still see the evidence up at the intersection where it's all spilled down on the road. Nobody gives a shit. Nobody. I don't know. We don't know where to turn. Like, what are we expected to do? Like, they say to be active, to be out in the fresh air. And when I went to that Atlantic Salmon Federation thing in Corner Brook Monday night, I stayed at my son's in Deer Lake. I slept with my window open. That's something I haven't been able to do for years. And it's such a simple pleasure that we are denied. And no one in government, Tony Wakeham, could get on there and say it's creating 2,500 jobs. I don't believe it. The 2,500 jobs, probably the majority of it includes cleaning up what's dying off. Like, you know, it's heartbreaking. Like, my husband and I worked all our lives to build what we have. My husband passed away in December 2023, and he would always get after me for it because I was so upset about it by what was happening, and nobody was helping. So that's why this year, when it started, and like, they don't even announce it. When there's a major die-off, it's like pulling teeth to get the truth. And like, there was a die-off. I know when the die-offs happen because I see it going. I smell it. And in July, there was Cook's Aquaculture had a major die-off. Like in the hottest times, nicest times of the year, when you want to get outside and enjoy things and enjoy your yard or whatever, we are denied it. I was a walker. I don't walk anymore. I washed my car last Thursday. Wind was supposed to be southwest. Okay, perfect. Good day. I'm going to clean my car. Brought the car in. The wind was changed to west. I'm in direct, I don't know what you call it, line of fire then for the smell. And it took me all day. I would go out and do so much. I would have to come in and get over my stomach sickness and the smell and to clear my lungs somewhat. And then I went out again. And I never did it like I really wanted to do it. And everybody here in the area knows me and knows how I keep my yard clean and nice and whatever. But it's just not possible. And what are we supposed to do? Are we supposed to move? Is what it's all about? They're supposed to make us leave like my neighbor did? It's wrong. They're not seeing it's okay to be in St. John's and, like I said, and sign this paper in a well-ventilated office and not even know what's going on. And there's another presentation in Stephenville tonight. It's at the theater in Stephenville. And I would encourage anybody in the area to go there and listen to the presentation. Rock plastic salmon is part of it, but there's another video on what is happening in BC and the impact that is having there, not only in how it's affecting the wild salmon, but what the companies are promoting now, a new cage system to the governments to say that this is okay, but divers went down. Ordinary people wouldn't know what's coming out of those cages, but the divers went down and showed the feces, the food, all the old antibiotic stuff that is still going in the water, but they're trying to make everybody believe this is perfect, this is fine.
You wonder when it's going to come to a time where it's going to be only onshore or not at all. I mean, because things aren't going to change for the better regarding cooling water and more oxygen for the fin fish that are in our open bays. Sharon, I really appreciate your time and your concern. We'll keep talking about it on the show. Maybe we'll get the aquaculture industry back on, and certainly the minister responsible for this type of oversight, which apparently, to your words, is not happening, and that shouldn't be the case.
No, we don't have any input. We're belittled and ridiculed if we speak to Department of Environment or call them, or even any of the ministers. It's not that. It's all about profit for foreign companies, and
maybe the conversation would sound...
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Maybe the conversation would sound different if you had it with the minister in your front lawn to experience what you experience every day. Thank you, Sharon. Appreciate your time. Let's take a break for the news.
The Tim Powers Show. Join the conversation weekday afternoons at 4 p.m. on your VOCM.
Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 2. Say good morning to the Executive Director at the Coalition of Persons with Disabilities NL. That's Nancy Reid. Hi, Nancy. You're on the air.
Today.
Doing well. How about you?
I'm doing great, thanks.
Good.
I really appreciate the opportunity this morning. I want to bring some information to your listening audience. The Coalition is going to be holding a public event on Monday evening, so at 7 o'clock Newfoundland time on Monday evening, and it is a public forum to discuss disability and the realities of persons with disabilities right now in this provincial election moment, if you will. The intention is to bring interested people together, whoever you might be, however you identify, to be able to come together and really identify concerns, bring forward the issues that people are having, and also, we hope, to be able to bring forward thinking about ways that we could do things differently or better so that our persons who are running for elected office right now can really hear of the concerns of 31+% of our population right now. 31% of our voting people are persons with disabilities. We want that community to be able to come together and voice concerns that are real for them.
And it's one thing for elected officials to hear the concerns, and then it's another one to understand the concerns.
Yeah, absolutely. And we believe that it's through that lived experience, or the voice of lived experience, that that's possible. We want to hold an event that is safe and inclusive. And what I mean by safe is that we will hold an event that is respectful of all persons. You know, we recognize that people are individuals. There will certainly be people there who are, you know, upset and angry about certain things. We're going to have this event in a way that is respectful and is safe for all participants and anybody who wants to come. And we really hope that we're going to get a good turnout. We're having it in person, live, and that's going to be at the Holiday Inn on Portugal Cove Road at 7 o'clock, again, Newfoundland time. In addition to that, we are simultaneously doing a virtual event. So it's going to be available through Facebook live stream. As well, if you wish to participate virtually, you can join through Zoom and again, be in the room with us virtually at that time. We will have all disability accommodations available, ASL interpretation, closed captioning, and we hope anything else that individuals need. If people have specific concerns or thoughts, I'm certainly available and would love to hear from you at the Coalition office. And I'm easily reached at nancy@codnl.ca or through phone. And my direct line is 709-722-7011.
Hopefully you get a big turnout here, Nancy. Quick question about the election itself. Are you hearing any accessibility concerns regarding people's opportunity to vote? Because I have. Town of Victoria, for one, they selected the town office to be the hub for voting as opposed to Pursalvic School. They're talking about, you know, the narrow entryway and the inability for people using wheelchairs, for instance, to get into the polling station. So are you hearing those types of concerns?
I haven't heard them yet this year on my end. I will say that often we hear those immediately after the event. again, at this event that we're holding on Monday evening, if people would like to bring those concerns forward, we would certainly love to hear about them at that time. Or, again, contact me directly, through email or through phone, because sometimes it means having that advocate and certainly a provincial lens in that space to come with you or to represent you, to talk to Elections NL officials about the spaces that are being used. We have spoken to Elections NL about it many times, and for much of our communication with Elections NL, we've had some good results. But I am sure that there will still be places on this year that are not fully accessible to people with disabilities, unfortunately. But again, only when we work together can we make those changes made. So I'd love it if people reached out to me. I'll do what I can to see what changes we can make in that way.
I appreciate the time this morning, Nancy. Let's touch base after the public forum to see what we heard.
Thank you so much, Patty.
Appreciate your time.
It's going to be on Monday evening on the 29th at 7 p.m. The information will be on our Facebook page as well. And again, if anybody has questions, please just reach out.
Appreciate your time. Good luck with it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. It's Nancy Reid, Executive Director at COD NL. Let's go to line number 6. Say good morning to the PC candidate running in Mount Sion. That's Daryl Hines. Daryl, you're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy. Thanks for taking the call. I just wanted to call and touch base. I was pleased last night to attend the Coalition of Unions Post-Secondary Education Town Hall at Memorial University. And I appreciated the invitation from Bill Kavanagh, who's chair of the coalition, and it was a good opportunity. I mean, Minister of Education was there on behalf of the Liberal Party, and Laura Bell was there on behalf of the NDP, so we had a good discussion on the issues, and certainly there was lots of concerns at Memorial University among the various unions, and especially the students, because of the significant cuts over the last number of years, and now they're facing some structural problems with their deficit and layoffs and whole units being eliminated, that sort of thing. So it was an interesting 2 hours, and I just appreciate the invitation, and there was a lot of hard questions, obviously more for government, given their track record and what they have to try to defend. But I was pleased to be there, and look, on behalf of our party, we've committed to, a tuition refund for graduates, who choose to live, stay, and work here in the province, which was, a significant policy initiative for us, and was very well received last night. And we've also committed to end this free work terms for people that, we got nurses and social workers and teachers that are working in the system and not getting paid on their work terms. I mean, I've always thought that was, just an unfair abuse because, again, nurses who are working on the floor of the hospital as a nursing student, if you want to instill value in what individuals do, you got to pay these young people, show respect, pay them, show that their work is valued, because, again, they're providing an excellent service to healthcare, for instance, in our hospitals, so why shouldn't they be paid? I mean, I've always disagreed with that, so I'm so proud that our party's committed to finally end it.
Yeah, I mean, for work terms, it's one thing if you're doing unpaid training, because that'd be part of your education, versus actually contributing to the day-to-day execution of duties, because that's working. And so getting paid for working just makes sense. So it's one thing to talk about, tuition rebates, if you live, work, and stay in the province, what have you. But we also need to understand your party's position on the long-term viability of the university itself. It's one thing to be supportive of students. It's also another thing to talk about operating expenses, maintenance deficits, those types of things, because the university on the current track is not going to be there long term. So that's important in addition to support for students.
No, 100%. And look, we've been clear in our position that, one needs to put a stop on this footprint expansion, because only a couple of years ago they were still talking about a law school. And again, you can't keep building buildings and inheriting free buildings, because it's all a cost of heat and light and staff and everything else. So one got to, stop this footprint expansion, but also needs to deal with their accumulated deficit problem or their accumulated deferred maintenance. Because again, if you look at the scathing Auditor General's reports, they've imposed a campus renewal fee, which was, it's a tuition increase by another name, but, that was signed off by government and instilled. Students are paying it, and they're collecting $8 million a year, and some of that $8 million is going to buy computers and leather furniture. That's not, it's not a critical, issue for the university. But so that money was inappropriately paid, in my view. So until Mon gets their financial house in order and shows some real accountability for the Auditor General's reports, and especially the students, because students have seen, administrative bloat over the years. I mean, I was a student leader in the mid-90s when the executive of Mon was 4 or 5 individuals. I remember we met with the late Dr. Main as executive. There was only 4 or 5 of them. Now there's a significant increase in administrative bloat. And, the accountability, I don't think, has been there based on the Auditor General's reports, because we've seen questionable decisions even by the administration in the past couple of years. I mean, I just remember a few years ago there was a $100,000 retreat in Fogo-Alnin. I mean, a wonderful thing to showcase that beautiful facility, but I don't know if that's a priority for the university, and that's where the money was spent. So, I mean, look, when the university that's now celebrating 100 years, and it's a tremendous accomplishment, but I mean, what I said last night, and I'll repeat it now, is, they need to define what the university is going to look like. Has to be everyone included, students, unions, faculty, staff, postgraduates. Everyone that was there last night got to collectively decide what do they want in the university and what's it going to look like. And then when that's done, come to government. And I'd be, delighted to be part of that as the MHA for Mount Sion to receive that information. But it has to be an inclusive, far-reaching process versus something just driven by the president's office by a handful of people with an agenda or some other situation. I mean, it has to be truly inclusive, and it has to be student-focused, because I heard last night in the student groups, waiting 2 years to meet with, or waiting months to meet with the Minister of Education. 2 years haven't been able to get an audience with the Premier. I mean, that's just not acceptable. Some of the stories last night about the lack of leadership and cooperation and information from the current administration was, very disheartening to me as a former student union president, and someone who spent many years involved in the student union. And, even when I look out and saw my daughter, who's a first-year Mon student, in the audience. I mean, I hope better things for her and a better relationship and a better experience. But like I said, there was a lot of disappointment and despair last night.
Of course. And just very quick, because I do got to get going, is, while Monsu and others complained about the increase in fees, which I understand, no one wants to pay more. In the big scheme of things, if I'm writing a check to Memorial University, includes campus renewal fees, other fees, and tuition. We saw the tuition freeze last for so long, the other fees went up, but tuition is a tax write-off, the other fees were not. So as opposed to being concerned with what the number is on the check, we just leaned in on tuition and didn't really consider the other amounts of money going out the door. Because if I'm writing the check, it's only the big number that I'm worried about, not the breakdown. I want a tax credit for tuition, which I don't get on a campus renewal fee, which was not used for campus renewal, which is also a problem. Darryl, I appreciate your time this morning. Good luck out there.
Thanks very much. Appreciate the time.
Pleasure. Bye-bye. All right, final break of the morning. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 1. Good morning, Jeremy. You're on the air.
Hey, Petty. Good morning. How's it going?
Doing well. How about you?
Good, thanks. I'm just calling on behalf of our non-for-profit organization, Odds and Ends Curling League, and we're hosting our 6th annual Curling Bonspiel this weekend, the Big Jib Draw. The event will take place at the Remax Center, St. John's Curling Club, beginning tonight at 6 p.m. and runs through Sunday. Come out and join us for a fun curling weekend. There will be a food truck on site as well.
What sort of stuff does Odds and Ends support as a not-for-profit, or simply just to fuel the curling?
Yeah. So we're the only queer curling league in the province. So we support our 2S LGBTQ plus community and our allies.
How many teams you got participating in the Bonspiel?
We got 32 teams, 130 fighters.
Wow, fantastic. I know, just in the broad strokes of curling, the region needs another curling sheet or 2 or 10.
Yes, for sure. I think we're a few years out from the Galway project.
Yeah, it certainly feels like it. It had a bit of momentum there a while ago. That seems to have stalled, and I'm not 100% sure why. It's probably a business model concern as much as anything else. Jeremy, anything else you want to tell us about the weekend Bonspiel?
No, that was all. Just trying to get some awareness.
I appreciate the time. Have fun.
Thank you so much. Have a great weekend.
You too, Jeremy. Bye-bye. Here we go. Bonspiel. Feels early, but hey, get at it. Let's go to line number 5. Marina, you're on the air.
Yes, Patty, good morning. How are you? Or good afternoon. It's almost afternoon now, sir. How are you?
Just about. I'm doing great. How about you?
Oh, okay, I'm doing fine, sir. you had a caller last week, a man who visited Salt Harbor Herring Neck.
Yep.
Yeah, and he was talking about the condition of the road down there.
That's right.
Yes, and he also mentioned the FPU, the Fishermen's Protective Union, which was formed in April of 1908 when 17 members of the communities joined the union. His name was William Coker.
That's right. Yep.
You're right. And you're talking about Herring Neck, the condition of the roads. Well, sir, I would say that the Liberal Party has let these people down very, very bad, because the road going down there that probably hadn't been paved since the first time it was paved back in years ago when the Liberals were trying to get back in there again. The history of these communities is not just one; it's different communities, from Cobb's Arm right on up to Salt Harbor, Sunnyside, you name it. Merritt's Harbor. There's a guy Lindsay calls you from Merritt's Harbor. That's part of the Herring Neck communities.
Okay.
Yeah. So I, as a young girl, grew up in Herring Neck on Salt Harbor Highland, right down in the harbour, coming in, and every 4 years there would be a man pay a visit to the communities trying to get re-elected again. And my father worked with the local service district. He was trying to get some work for people and an extension of a link from Salt Harbor to Sunnyside. Now, most people don't think that there's two Sunnysides in Newfoundland, which there is. Okay? So my father was at that for years and years and years. And the person that came, he came and sat down in the kitchen and talked about this, that, and something else. Tell my father to set up meetings and tell him this, that, and something else, what they were going to do, the Liberal Party. 4 years passed, nothing done. Finally, my father got a letter. So this was all communicated by my father, writing letters wintertime when he was not working, to the MHA, who was representing the district. Finally, he said, yeah, we'll link one island, which was Salt Harbor. Ship Island, they decided to relocate. This is a real joke. This is relocation. They decided to relocate because they didn't have the money to link the two islands to the main. This was completed. The link to Salt Harbor Island was completed in 1969. So it's not really an island anymore. The link is made just the same as you're coming across the Curtis Causeway, leading to the road to the Isles. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay. So I got a lot more to say, but today I think this is enough to talk about the negligence of the Liberal Party concerning that district, which was, they were in power there for years and years and years, and they'd done very little for the community except for tell people that they had to get out of where they were, like my father and 7 other families had to move up because they wouldn't connect down to the harbour where they lived. They had homes that were built, new homes and everything. My father built a home in 1948. He had to move from where he lived up to another place. He was not a fisher person.
Marina,
my father was,
just because we've hit 12 o'clock, you've had the last word, but you're always welcome to extend the conversation if you're so inclined.
I sure will, sir.
Thank you.
And I got another thing to talk about, which is a book was written by someone about Herring Neck. Okay.
Okay, let's do it next time. Thanks for your time this morning.
Thank you for remembering me.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, good show today. Big thanks to all hands, and we will indeed pick up this conversation again tomorrow morning right here on VOCM and Big Land FM's Open Line. On behalf of the producer, David Williams, I'm your host, Paddy Daly. Have yourself a safe, fun, happy day. We'll talk in the morning. Bye-bye.